But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
Okay, that might have been a little bit abrupt. Hello, everybody, and good day, and to our listeners, young, old, new, old, day, night, old. Welcome to HBR News, number 148. The SPLC declares MRAs a hate group. I am your host, Brian Martinez, and I am here with the polecats, those nosy critters who ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. Prepare your amygdala because we are going in dry. Today's polecat panel consists of Mr. Mellow Yellow himself, Max Darrett, our polecat punster and pussycat punisher Hannah, Dr. Random Rakam, Evil Panda, Puppet Master, and Rabid Long Range Rhetorician, and me, the Supreme Doge in charge, back in the sack. We have an excellent show for you guys today, and as you might have been aware from last show, we're trying out some new things, so let's see how it goes, and feel free to give us some feedback. So here go the stories of the week. The SPLC finally did the thing, and they have declared MRAs a hate group. More specifically, they've declared A Voice for Men a hate group, but it's how long until the honey badgers are basically on the same list? I mean, really. And what does that really mean? What does it mean when the SPLC labels you a hate group? We'll delve into that a little bit later on the show. Twitch is partnering with a nonprofit to give female streamers money and gibs in order to achieve equality in streaming. New York Times writer Sophie Karasek says she has the solution to the problem of how we currently perform justice, in particular with regards to sexual assault and rape. And finally, the University of York, that would be in the UK, is going to do its darndest to crack down on the most important challenges faced by students today. Dank memes. No, I'm serious. Dank memes. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. Elon Musk may be looking to take us beyond the moon and has his sights aimed at Mars, a place we've always dreamed of going. But does he know that it's just exhibiting male entitlement and reinforcing patriarchal norms to want to go to Mars? Space travel and exploration, such a barbaric and typically male thing to want to do. Anyway, if you would like to participate in our after shows either as an audience member or a participant, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find yourself unable to find our content because YouTube finally dropped the axe on our channels, go to badgerfeed.com. That's badgerfeed.com. As you may be aware, we have moved to digest formats for podcasting, and now there's all kinds of content available in different parts of the web. So if you're listening to this and you want to follow the uncut live streams, if you're listening to the podcast version, you'll be able to find those at badgerfeed.com. So have you guys noticed, if you're watching this live stream on Honey Badger Radio, but you're not watching it on Badger live streams, then after the show is over, suddenly it's not available? Well, we usually unlist them so that HBR's main channel is not over cluttered with lots and lots of streams. But you can still watch them on Badger Feed, or just subscribe to Honey Badger live streams, or Badger live streams rather. That is fine too, because those streams stay up and then you can always look at them there. One other thing I want to go into before we start the stories. Quick little shill. Cassie J, you may have heard of Cassie J. She is the director of the Red Pill documentary about the men's rights movement. She is going to be hosting another screening of her documentary with a Q&A afterwards, and she would love it if you would attend. It's at Cal Poly Pomona. That's in South California, the Southwest California. And it's on March 5th at 3 p.m. You can look at redpillmovie.com for more details. She will be there in person for the Q&A. But the best part is it's free. So you don't have to pay. Just go down there. She's doing a free screening, open to the public, with a Q&A afterwards. And who knows, there could be some other guests there. So I thought I would make you guys aware of that. If you can, please check it out. And now we're going to get into the stories. So I will start with the first one. So, speaking of Cassie Jaye, you may not have known this, but she has sent an email to the Southern Poverty Law Center after they announced that they are officially adding the men's rights website A Voice for Men to their list of hateful ideologies. When Jaye made the film, The Red Pill, SPLC senior fellow Mark Potok told her that the men's rights movement, including website A Voice for Men, were not listed as hate groups at the time because they did not fit their description or definition of a group. Apparently, this has changed. Cassie Jaye points out that, quote, if this means any website that writes subjectively reprehensible commentary can be deemed a hate group, then why is Jezebel overlooked for their articles endorsing violence against men? So, and she may have a point. And for those of you guys who are watching this...
Based Cassie does it again.
This is true. So I'm showing some slides for people who are watching that show feminist Anna Leaf Saxby with a tweet that reads, not endorsing that we hashtag kill all men, some of my best friends are men, etc., but reducing men to 1 in 4 would solve many of society's problems. And of course, there is the very famous photo of Jessica Valenti wearing the sweater that reads, I bathe in male tears, with a tweet that says, I took a special picture for all the misogynists out there.
By the way, just to interject quickly, if a while ago somebody asked, actually no, it was Karen who asked for a mock-up of that photo of Jessica Valenti wearing the I bathe in male tears photo, and they redid it beautifully to say Bukkake Party. And if anybody wants to see that picture, just send me a tweet on at my Twitter, which is twitter.com/Max Darrett, and I'll send it to you.
I want that picture.
Okay, I'll send it to you in just a second.
And since male tears is slang for a certain thing, then Bukkake Party and male tears basically means the same thing.
There you go.
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Okay, so before I continue on, first off, I just want to know if anybody has any thoughts on this Cassie Jaye thing, or if what you guys said is basically good enough. We'll move on to the next slide.
No, Doc's right. She is absolutely wonderful, and I don't think they're going to listen to her because they're determined to undermine men's rights activism by labeling us a hate group. But that was wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
That she wrote to them.
Saying that Cassie Jaye is a hateful person is like saying Chuck E. Cheese likes dissecting rats in his spare time. Well, not rats, but maybe like frogs. It's just,
or it's like saying Ayaan Hirsi Ali is a hateful person. Oh wait, they did that already.
Yes, they did.
Really? The SPLC said that about Ayaan Hirsi Ali?
Yeah, she's a dangerous Islamophobe. Shit like that.
Give me a fucking break.
Yeah,
Really?
they've gone off the deep end. And I mean, do you want to get through the article before I go off? Because
I got some more stuff to get through, because you guys are gonna you might be surprised at some of the shit that's in here, and this is actually pretty lengthily written. Okay, so going to the Southern Poverty Law Center's website, quote, male supremacy, end quote, has been added to their hate group map. And you'll see that there are what they consider 2 groups that are considered male supremacy groups in the U.S. One is Return of Kings, and the other is A Voice for Men. Those 2 things, not the same. not even close. But let me continue. In the SPLC's resource section, the website gets broken into the categories extremist groups, individual profiles, and ideologues. The ideologues page is where you'll find a lengthy write-up on male supremacy, but it's also the, quote, alt-right, quote, anti-immigration, quote, anti-Muslim, and the, quote, sovereign citizens movement. Yes. They define male supremacy, for those of you who are wondering, as a hateful ideology that advocates for the subjugation of women, and have connected extremist profiles of Mike Cernovich and Roosh V. However, they quote a lot of Paul Elam. Maybe they haven't written up his profile just yet. They also attempt to conflate racism with the apparent misogynist beliefs of this hateful ideology. Anybody want to say anything now before I continue?
I think this is why it's unlikely that Honey Badger Radio will ever be included on this, because Honey Badger Radio is that thing that's done mostly by women in this male supremacy sort of field. Yeah.
They like to pretend that we don't exist. They don't like to talk about us. They don't like to draw attention to us. And God forbid other people draw attention to us. And the only thing I've seen so far with them is going after us by trying to associate us with a voice for men. Which I always have fun with that. Because it's like here they are demonizing activists that fight for things like due process rights. So clearly civil rights is bad if you argue to include men. But in any case, yeah, they really don't want to deal with us.
Yeah, Honey Badger Radio, even though there is a significant slant towards men's rights, what it really is we have a whole bunch of people that contribute content here with a lot of differing viewpoints, although on a couple of viewpoints, we all pretty much agree. If Honey Badger Radio were at all a male supremacy group, I would be deriding this institution, if that's what you want to call it, on a daily basis. I think it's pretty much no secret that a huge part of my life up until this point has been advocating for women's issues and making sure that they aren't sullied by idiots like the feminists of modern day. And the idea that this group of people, that like people like Mike, people like Hannah, some of the most level-headed, smart, non-hateful people that I've ever met, would it all be trying to... Oh, you're really taking issue with that?
Level-headed, I'm not. But well, thank you. Sorry, thank you. Carry on.
Yes, but yeah, just if honestly, if that were at all the case, I would be tarnishing Honey Badger Radio upwards and downwards. Hopefully, it like uses speech if it ever comes to the point where Honey Badger Radio is actually criticized for supposedly promoting male supremacy. You can just take what I just said and use it as a token.
Yeah. I think that Mike is right about the Badgers not getting attention because of the female aspect. But I wonder how long it will be before they decide to throw them under the bus anyway. I don't know.
Well, there is, I think it's partly because of the female leadership, because there are women involved with the voice. I mean, I'm part of a Voice for Men, and I've been involved with the Voice for Men. I was involved with a Voice for Men before Honey Badger Radio existed. Allison was involved with the Voice for Men before Honey Badger Radio existed. And there are several women involved. There's women involved on their moderating team. There's women that write for them. There's all kinds of female involvement, but you won't see any of us quoted on that site. I don't think they'll even quote Janet Bloomfield, and they hate her. But no, they only want to pay attention to Paul.
Yep.
And they're even irrational in how they do that. As a statement of male supremacy, they quoted, "We've shouted endlessly at a deaf world that we were on the path to destruction, and we have watched our predictions of men being reduced to indentured servants to a malicious matriarchy come true, even as society continues to dismiss and humiliate us for speaking." So basically, they're calling it supremacy to complain about being silenced when you complain about being enslaved. It's supremacy to not want to be enslaved and to not want to be silenced for complaining about it. That's supremacy. Like, the SPLC has lost it.
Absolutely. It gets better. Okay, so let me give you a quote from the article. Let me make sure that I'm looking at the right thing. Okay. Male supremacy was fundamental to the foundation of the racist alt-right, and in many ways served as its gateway drug. Let that sink in. It is characterized by angry rants blaming feminism for the decline of Western civilization, deriding feminists as social justice warriors, and spreading fear over interracial relationships drew many to the alt-right. Personalities. Well, okay, go ahead, Max. Get in there.
The first two things there are actually correct. We do blame feminism for some of the decline of Western civilization, only because people can only take so much stupidity before their brain cells start to react chemically, and also deriding feminists as social justice warriors. Well, look, we here believe in social justice in the most basic, loose term, as like something that promotes good for all people born into this world. But when it comes to being a social justice warrior, that's a completely different other thing. As far as interracial relationships, you might want to look at some of the people that are here. I mean, Brian's from Puerto Rico. I'm from the Simpsons kin ethno state. Mike is a panda. I mean,
I have a mixed ethnic background.
There you go. For fuck's sake, man. And it's not like we don't talk about how bad identity politics are like every other hour over here at Honey Badger Radio. So suck my dick.
But I will say this. I do not believe in social justice. I believe in justice. I do not believe it needs any modifier. There does not need to be a modifier for justice. The minute you have to put a modifier on it, you're doing something wrong.
Unjust, in fact.
You simply need to recognize that if something is a human right, there is no demographic that should be excluded from consideration and protection of that right. Period. That's justice. There's nothing social to do with it.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, as far as they're reaching in this article, okay? It says, essentially, male supremacy is how you get into the alt-right. So MRAs are the gateway drug to Richard Spencer. It's ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. But it's a way for them to lump everything together. And we'll get into this later, but I wonder if you guys can guess where the SPLC got that idea about the MRM and A Voice for Men and how they connect to apparently white nationalists and the alt-right. I wonder where they got those ideas. Who could their source have possibly been that could have told them that this information?
Not the mammoth. Surely not the mammoth again.
So, let me go on. It is characterized by angry rants, blaming feminism for the decline of Western civilization. I do blame feminism for that, at least in part, if not most of it. Deriding feminists as social justice warriors. I thought you guys embraced that idea of being a social justice warrior. I could have sworn Francesca Ramsey made a whole video about it. And spreading fear over interracial relationships that drew many to the alt-right. Personalities like alt-right facilitator Milo Yiannopoulos. Okay, so let's stop right there. Milo Yiannopoulos, a gay man married to a black man, apparently has a problem with interracial relationships. Also, Milo Yiannopoulos, supposedly part of the alt-right. Also, Milo Yiannopoulos, supposedly an MRA. Sorry, but he's none of those things. He's a lot of things, but he's not those things. You guys, I don't know where you're getting this info. Then we move on to conspiracy theorist Mike Cernovich.
He likes his dicks cut. He likes them cut because he likes them better that way in his mouth.
Yes.
And that's why he's not an MRA. See, that's...
Well, now, he did listen to men's rights activists that discussed that with him in the post that he made, and he did concede that it's not necessarily something that should be forced on anybody, and that it's not something that people should do just because of other people's preferences, or feel they have to do because of other people's preferences, and that there's no health benefit to it. He conceded all of those things, so that at least, the difference between the SPLC and Milo Yiannopoulos is that at least Milo Yiannopoulos can look at things he disagrees with a perspective of, I'm getting new information and it might change my mind about this. They can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's my understanding that black dicks, at least certainly proportionally, are not circumcised anything like as often as white dicks. I mean, in America, obviously in Africa, but in America, it's kind of traditional for black cocks not to be cut. So I wondered just how many brown foreskins Milo had to chug down before he thought, okay, I can live with this. I'm outrageous.
Well, given that he's in the UK, isn't it more likely that he was
even more likely?
Yeah. So it really wouldn't make much of a difference. I mean, it's pretty much not standard there, isn't it?
I think this is a bit of a tangent, but is Milo in the UK? I know he's from there, but is that where he's residing right now? Because he seems to be spending a lot of time in the United States.
New video game. Where in the world is Milo Yiannopoulos?
Yeah.
Much more flamboyant than where in the world is Carmen Sandiego. That game would be fabulous.
Oh my god, it would. All right, so what was I? Okay, Milo Yiannopoulos. Then they also lumped in with A Voice for Man and Roosh V and all that. Conspiracy theorist Mike Cernovich.
And by the way, they haven't mentioned MGTOW. I mean, there's another group of people who loosely sort of say feminism is responsible for the downfall of society. And there's other group. Well, Honey Badger says it. Honey Badger Radio says it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I say it all the time.
And we genuinely mean it. But they can't put a face on MGTOW.
No.
Because they generally don't want to show them, and it's the whole kind of idea is it's underground. And they can't put a face on Honey Badger Radio.
MGTOW is represented by Grumpy Cat.
Yeah, anyone they can't put a scary bearded face on is kind of just not in the picture. With Voice for Men, it's Paul, and he's like 15 feet tall, and he's got a big scary bearded face. With Roosh V, he's fucking 5 foot tall, but he's still got a big scary bearded face.
Yeah.
Oh no! There is nothing scary or intimidating about. I'm sorry.
About
Nothing
Roosh?
About Roosh V. No. Not to be fair, if you know Paul, he's not intimidating either. But no.
No.
But they've got big, beardy, evil faces, Hannah.
Come on. Roosh can intimidate his way out of a paper bag. I'm sorry. But
well, the SPLC, to be fair, the SPLC seems easily intimidated because they're willing to throw anybody in the hate group category, including Milo Yiannopoulos. And also Mike Cernovich, who they call a conspiracy theorist, apparently also part of the alt-right / men's rights group / white supremacy / like there. And
but he's not doing it right because I think he's clean shaven.
He's got an eternal scruff, but it's like flesh colored scruff, so it looks like he just has bad skin, but he's actually got hair on his face. It's just not he's not as beardy as Roosh or Paul. So
it's Indiana Cernovich in the Temple of Conspiracy.
He's got yeah. I don't know what you call it when your facial hair is the same color as your skin, but that's what Mike Cernovich has. And then
blonde.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. And then pickup artist Roosh V and Return of Kings and alt-right.com writer Matt Forney, who I don't know, also constantly straddle the line between more formal alt-right circles and the male supremacist world.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
To be sure.
Do the formal alt-right circles have a uniform?
Not yet, but I think Hugo Boss is on the line.
It's a spiritual thing.
Yeah. When Richard Spencer and his people get to Mars, I'm sure that they'll figure out a uniform to wear. Because I know they want to go to space, and I say good luck. But to be sure, this also includes violently bigoted Paul Elam and his hate group, A Voice for Men. This is actually, he's quoted as violently bigoted. So, how do we even untangle all this bullshit?
That's like when you stand next to somebody and your bigotry is so violent that even though you don't move and they don't move, they get punched in the face. By absolutely nothing discernible. It's just that your bigotry is so violent that they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Well, they do often do that sort of double take where they can't believe what's happening. And they do look like they're being punched in the face by a ghost of their own creation, obviously.
Let me move on to the next clip here. All right. So groups and considered to be part of this hateful ideology. So we've already, put all this together. They include MRAs, but they're also red pillars, PUAs, incels, and MGTOW. So they do actually name these groups. So
Yeah, so if you're a guy that has a hard time getting a woman and he just wants to have physical contact and experience what that's like, you know, like any other human does, and he's not going about it in a violent way, that makes him a terrible person.
He's Elliot Rodger. They all are.
There you go.
If you haven't got your dick wet yet, then you're Elliot Rodger. So hurry up and get your dick wet.
Yes, sir. They're all supreme gentlemen.
Oh, shit! Now you're on the hook for child support. Oh, how did that happen?
Fuck.
And again, too, I don't understand how you would even... Okay, how would you be able to lump this in? For people who are watching that may not know these groups. So, first off, they name people that are not that... They're only connected in a very tenuous way, in that they seem to... I guess the only place where they overlap is that they supported the release of the Red Pill movie. To be honest, those are the only things that I could see. Milo Yiannopoulos and Mike Cernovich were big supporters. Of course, Paul Elam was. But then they throw in Roosh V, who, as far as I know, had no opinions on the Red Pill movie either way, because it doesn't really affect what he does. However, they're always trying to throw Roosh V in with MRAs, even though Roosh V is pretty critical of the men's rights movement. He's been vocally critical of them because I guess he thinks that we're, I don't know, betas that don't get laid or something, whatever the PUA talking point usually is. So that he's got nothing to do with the MRM, except that they both criticize Feb.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, I think it's becoming clear now. Now I know how you get on the list. And you get...
Well, either that or this is a direct attack on Cassie J for making the Red Pill movie.
Ironically, all of these things like point to the alt-right. Like Milo is an alt-right vindicator. Like we're probably alt-right vindicators. And ironically, the alt-right doesn't criticize feminism. They consider it so 2014.
Yes.
They treat it like it's irrelevant.
They don't think it's relevant, and little do they know how relevant it is. But that's a story for another time. Because it's affecting them, I think. So then... Let's see. So then they go into groups, and they start to lump in MRAs, Red Pillars, PUAs, Incels, and MGTOW as one monolith, or at least as a part of the same base structure. But here's the thing. The only people who actually organize are MRAs and maybe to a lesser extent PUAs. I don't think... MGTOW is all about, you know, leaving. They may communicate with each other, but I don't think MGTOWs have conferences or anything like that. They just do what they do. And then they give advice to other people, other men, about how to avoid women, or at the very least, you know, to not get married. And PUAs, they give each other advice on how to get laid, or they compete. But incels, that's not a thing in terms of a group. I don't think that there are incel meetups or conferences or books or documentary films.
No, but there's things like Wizard Chan. There's places on the internet where virgins meet up to tell each other their stories of how they're virgins, and they're all clearly Elliot Rodger.
Yes, clearly.
It's not like, you know, it's a functional and good thing for them to try to support each other emotionally, because it's not like, you know, we have this massive problem of male suicide or anything, and it's not like being lonely can lead to that, you know. Mm-hmm. So obviously they should be condemned for even having a name for their experience.
Hold on, I'm just going to do my Kathy Newman thing here quickly, Hannah. So what you're saying is that women should have sex with men, otherwise they're going to kill themselves.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, well, at least you admit it.
That's the prescription. You know, if you want to know. No, the other thing I will say is, if you want to know if a MGTOW conference has been a success, look and see. And if nobody showed up, it went very well.
Yes.
Let me just get this straight. You're saying that we...
All right. And then they also mention Red Pillars. They leave that open. So people who call themselves, I think Red Pillars, isn't that kind of a really broad blanket term that could mean anything. Like, it doesn't have necessarily much to do with, feminism or men's rights per se, although men's rights activists do talk about the red pill, but it's usually in reference to things like feminism and gender. But there are red pillars that talk about lots of different stuff. Like, the flat earthers think that they're red pilled. The people who ask the JQ think that they're red pilled. Like, there are people that believe in all kinds of weird shit that believe that they're red pilled. So red pillars is a little bit, isn't that a bit of a difficult thing to pin down?
I wonder if
they're
feminists are
talking
going to
about-
start calling themselves red pilled in a few years, like unironically. That might happen.
I think red pillars actually refers to the group that posts to the red pill subreddit.
There you go.
Which is the red pill subreddit is different from the men's rights subreddit in that the men's rights subreddit is actually about activism towards reform. The red pill subreddit is more about acknowledging the circumstances that men live in currently and trying to survive those circumstances. And they have a somewhat traditionalist conservative outlook on those. And they can be very rough on women as far as the way they describe how women relate to those circumstances. But I haven't been there in a while, but I haven't really seen them be unfair. I've seen women get very upset at some of the things that are said. An example being the fact that they have pointed out that the level of maturity that a woman has to exhibit in the world in order to be considered an adult is equal to the level of maturity a boy has to exhibit at the age of 14. And so a lot of women never mature past that. Most women never mature past that because they don't have to. They can survive in the world without maturing past that, without taking any more responsibility, without being any more accountable for themselves or the people around them than that. That's not a condemnation of women. It's a fact. And it's not necessarily saying that can't happen. It's that it doesn't. And it's a lament. Right. If I, as a woman reading that, my thought was, what can we do to fix this? Not, gee, I'm so insulted. How dare they talk about women that way? Because I can recognize that it's true. You don't see men striving to be house husbands very often. And the reason is because society holds them accountable for the financial welfare of their households on a level that society does not hold women accountable. And it's not so much a shaming gender role thing in the way that feminists talk about it as it is a lack of accountability in women. So they would hate red pillars because they point out hard truths to face. And it is very hard to face a truth like that if you don't want to do the work of reforming. And it's a lot of work to reform a situation where you have been raised in a society where your sex is not expected to be accountable for themselves, to be accountable to their communities, to be accountable to their families, to be accountable to their partners on the same level as the opposite sex. It's a lot of work to overcome that. So the lazy way out is to say, you're misogynistic. You hate the women's. And that's what they do.
Yep. It's just slander. Okay, so I got some super chats, and then we will continue. Redicus gives us $5 and says, the SPLC hasn't been honest since they released their hate group list. Yeah, I don't think that they have understand what a hate group is, or they are bought and paid for by somebody else. I don't know. Field O'Bears gives us $10 and says, the SPLC declares anything that isn't Marxist division of societies based on pure resentment and thievery as hate groups. Socialism always ends in starvation and genocide. No, Field O'Bears, it just hasn't been tried yet. Would you stop? We just need to do it. We just need to get it right. Just one time. We get it right one time, and then it's utopia.
Hey man, we're doing it well in the Springfield Ethno State. Come join us.
Don't you want to live in Don't you want to live in Star Trek? Anyway, Joey Jojo.
Illogical.
Yeah. Joey Jojo gives us $2 and says, "What the hell is the SPLC and what do they do?" The SPLC is the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they basically name hate groups so that mainstream media, academia, and other people who supposedly have authority, like politicians, they get to point at groups that they don't like and say, look, they're on the SPLC's hate list, so don't listen to what they have to say. Look at me, I'm telling you the truth. Don't look at them because they're clearly on the hate list. That's what the SPLC is for.
They're like an oracle, basically, like the oracle at Delphi, except they employed a feminist fucking Marxist, and that's all they've been educated in. Like they go out into this fucking temple and say, "Hey, SPLC, who do you hate today? These people and that all of those people, yeah, because they were wearing the wrong colors for this fucking season or whatever."
Exactly. Joey Jojo gives us $2 again and says, being alone and suffering from loneliness is hatred. Hey, if you can, get Jordan Peterson's book. I just got it in the mail today. His new book. Maybe it'll help Joey Jojo. Maybe. Clean your room is what I'm saying. General Jack Ripper gives us $10 and says, I've got to get to bed because I have work early, so I just wanted to say hello. I'll watch the VOD tomorrow. Thank you, General Jack Ripper. And then lastly, we have another $5 from Joey Jojo that says, I have never had sex, kissed, dated, or even hugged a woman. Apparently, I am a danger to everyone. Maybe feminists shouldn't block male alternatives to sex. Well, I guess we'll see. I know they're going to try and ban the robots, but that may not work out because capitalism. But it depends. And then, lastly, Darth Elwin gives us $5 and says, can you explain why teenage boys seem more immature than teenage girls at face value? I don't think they are, but it makes me curious.
Well, that's easy. Go ahead, Hannah.
I was going to say, having raised kids, no, they are not more immature. They're just different. And we ascribe maturity to girls' quietness and their social behavior. Which basically is a combination of social manipulation and relational aggression. I should say somewhat functional social manipulation and relational aggression. And boys are more boisterous and loud and everything, but they're not less mature. They're just different. That's part of the problem, that they're being deemed dysfunctional or broken or less mature because they're not girls. It's not true.
Yeah, that everything that Hannah said is true, but I just think in respect to like social situations where young boys and young girls are put together and the hormones start flying, obviously the boys start acting immature and don't know how to, present themselves because their minds are just completely going haywire because there's a girl in the room, right? And then because women are sought out where as women are the ones that sort of choose who they associate themselves with. That's why that sort of thing might happen. But yeah, in any other circumstance, it is, as Hannah said.
Well, I think there might be a one-word answer, and it's play. How do children play? They climb on things. They jump around. They do physical stuff. How do old people play?
Same.
No, quite the opposite. They do non-physical things like talking to each other or playing cards or dominoes or shit. So obviously, when you look at teenagers, male and female of the same age, you see the males are quite physically boisterous. They like jumping around more than ever more and moving shit around and stuff. And you think, well, that's what children do. Whereas girls start to get into having deep conversations with each other and. I mean, they have physical hobbies as well, but you see the difference.
Yeah. No, I'm just questioning deep.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that girls' conversation.
Do you think my bubblegum matches my sweater?
I mean,
I know what you mean. Tony's gonna notice that my bubblegum matches my sweater because, I made this whole ensemble, just put this whole ensemble together so that Tony would notice, and he hasn't noticed me in 6 months, and I'm gonna go nuts. No, girls are not more mature.
God damn it, Tony, get a fucking clue.
I mean, deep like a hole. Not deep as in important. Deep like a big fucking empty hole. Yeah.
Well, there are times when girls have these, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life type conversations. But the truth is, they're not any more mature than boys about gender relations either. In fact, they're every bit as obsessed with boys as boys are with girls. It's just that boys are more overtly demonstrable about it, or demonstrative about it, and they're supposed to be, or at least they're expected to be, whereas girls are supposed to be all demure and quiet, and they're not supposed to chase the boys. They're supposed to work really hard to make the boys chase them.
Yeah.
And so they don't overtly do the same things that the boys do. What they do is they wait until nobody's looking, and then they do the same things that the boys do.
And
they play different kinds of games.
Yeah.
And in addition, when the funny thing about boy behavior is there is a lot of physical play that happens, but then there is downtime, and when there is downtime, then they start to have their own discussions and their own kind of, things that they're wondering about, their own curiosity about the world, and they ask it of their peers, or or maybe the oldest boy in the group or whatever, who they like tend to look up to, the alpha, I guess you could say. And they also have conversations. I mean, I used to stay up really late at night, hanging out with my friends as kids, and we would like ask all kinds of like crazy questions about the universe and and all that shit after we were done playing a bunch of softball or playing tag or whatever sort of pretend game we had going on. So I think that there's what people see, and then there's what people choose to tune out, and I think that it's more complex than that. Now there is, I think, there is some science about like when girls reach their maturity versus when boys do, and I think that there's some difference there. But I think in general they're more alike than they are different. So that's how I would answer that question.
I will say one thing that is different between the two sexes: girls seem to take a romantic interest in boys before boys in general even notice that romantic interest in girls is a potential thing. And it's not necessarily across the board, but for the most part, like girls seem to do that almost right off the bat. So you end up getting labeled somebody's boyfriend when you're busy playing in the mud, and she gets mad at you for not getting it. But it's not necessarily like that doesn't make it a romantic thing. It's just that girls start developing crushes, and they start and thinking of the opposite sex as potential partners and all that stuff way earlier. And I don't know, that's probably an evolutionary thing as well. But that is one thing that is very different between the two in terms of maturity. Boys have other ways. They take responsibility for certain things, and they develop their protective instinct a lot sooner than girls do. So you kind of get that back and forth. And I guess it is probably an evolutionary thing. And people see girls as more mature simply because they approve of the ways in which girls develop more than they approve of the ways in which boys develop. Which is really a shame, because as they grow up, both sexes become pretty awesome people, and they both deserve to be appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a hell of a spanner in the works when it comes to, is sex a mature thing to do? I mean, biologically, physically, yes, by definition, it's a mature thing to do. And yet, when adults are preoccupied with sex all the time, we think of it as an immature thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's subject to sort of skewing in a direction.
Or immaturity is being conflated with animal instincts, I guess. Like if someone just wants to have sex, people who are criticizing that would compare it to, a dog in heat that just wants to have sex. And so they might say, oh, well, that's very, primitive, base, instinctual thing that you're acting on, as opposed to immaturity, because I don't think immaturity would probably more likely be reflected in a disinterest in sex and finding the opposite sex to be icky, perhaps.
Yeah, immaturity would be reflected in in both actually in a way, because having a lack of control over your impulses is an immature thing too. That's why one of the reasons why I think it's stupid to look at crimes committed by young people, adolescents, underage adolescents and younger, and say if the crime is more violent, that means they're mature enough to be tried as an adult. I mean, no, it doesn't. Immature or violence is an incredibly immature thing to do. It's an incredibly immature response to your situation or your circumstances or whatever just happened to you. So clearly, if somebody engages in a greater degree of violence, they're less mature, not more mature. But we try them as adults because what they did was maybe more grave, and adults are more offended by it, when in fact they're more likely to have some sort of a mental health condition instead of be mature. And so, to me, failure to control your impulses, that is immaturity. Having impulses doesn't make you immature. Not being able to deal with them does.
Yep. Okay, I got some more super chats, and then I'm going to move on to the rest of the article. Blave Kaiser gives us $10 and says, so since I consider myself a MGTOW, an MRA, a red pillar, and a virgin, I guess you mean incel, do I hate women times 4? Yes. Yes, you are that bad a person.
Well, I don't think you can consider yourself a virgin. I mean, you either are or you're not.
That's true.
There might be a gray area.
Please explain.
Okay, so if you took it in the gray area, you might still consider yourself a virgin. Just saying.
Define the gray area.
Show us on the doll where the gray area is.
I mean, how does a lesbian know if she's a virgin or not? How deep do you have? Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. So yeah, no, I know what he's saying, and I guess maybe what Blave Kaiser is referring to as a virgin is someone who hasn't had intimate relations with a person of whatever sex he is attracted to, which I'm assuming is a woman, because
and that doesn't make him an incel, by the way. I mean, if he's a virgin and a MGTOW, it's very possible that he's deliberately celibate, which would be a dilcel.
Yeah, except that the SPLC hasn't thrown virgins in the category, because that's just like that. There's just too many people that work in the media that believe in their politics that might fall into that category. So, and you just can't do that with virgins in general. But that's why I thought.
I wonder if they're doing nice guys. Nice guys TM are now officially a hate group.
If they throw virgins in the category, does that count as a sacrifice?
To the dragon of chaos, yes.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we think of female virgins as the ones who get sacrificed, but think of what we've done with male virgins over the years, over the centuries. I mean, what generally happened with a male who hadn't settled down with a family by the age of fucking 20? They were generally a village idiot or some kind of sacrifice to the mud god, right?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the word virgin. It's kind of a hazy term to define. So I'm guessing.
I agree. I did a video about this fucking like 6 years ago. Why do we have a word for someone who's never had sex, but we don't have a word for someone who has? Let alone someone who's had sex between 1 and 5 times, and a word for someone who's had sex between 5 and 15 times. And so, you know what I mean? The only word we have for any value is 0 equals virgin. Everything else equals, if you've had sex once, you might as well have had sex 100 times. You're just as experienced.
Well, you know, if you have sex 100 times, there is a word for that. There's several words for that.
Well, it depends, though. 100 times with the same person, or 100 times with 100 different people. Say that there's
a word for that too. It's you end up getting married.
If it's the same person, I thought that you stop having sex when you get married.
That's news to me. I might be in a little bit of trouble.
You know, it's become serious when you've lost count.
Yeah.
Well, you know, my great uncle used to answer people about the size of his family. His parents had a lot of kids, and people would ask him, you know, are your parents Catholic? And he would say, no, just good friends.
There you go.
Nice.
So, okay, so then last super chat that I've seen so far anyway. Blave Kaiser gives us $5 and says, so you criticize women, that means you hate them. You try to pick up women, so that means you hate them. And if you ignore women, then you hate them. What is a guy to do? Just
join feminism, and then you'll be okay. Then you'll have a couple of decades before they turn on you too.
If you subject women to the soft sexism of low expectations, you're doing it right. At least according to people like the SPLC.
Yep.
You don't overtly keep women down. You fight to keep women from advancing by presenting the idea that women shouldn't have to do any better as an actual positive thing. And that's how you do it. And then you love women because they said so.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to male virgins, it's only something that's usually slapped on men who haven't slept with women. I don't think that gay virgin men, I don't think that they get that word thrown at them. Like, it's used as a pejorative to men who haven't had sex with women. That's when I hear it the most, I think. So it is an interesting thing to think about that we have a word for that. I mean, there's a female virgin is actually not something that people tend to frown on. It's actually something that tends to make her more attractive. That's why a lot of girls, they often lie about their virgin status because they find that it actually gives them more sexual value. I have to read a super chat that I missed. Joey Jojo gave us $2.
And by the way, let's not forget the existence of cougars. Women are attractive when they're virgins, and they're also attractive when they're MILFs.
Mm-hmm.
There's an escape in every direction.
Joey Jojo gives us $2 and says, I can't wait for my Christina Hendricks sex bot. And I think you should fuck her to the Mad Men theme. And some
Christina Hendricks, baby.
Yeah. Some dumb jerk gives us $5 and says, hi Badgers, I have high blood pressure and my better half is making pork chops tonight. Here's $5 she won't get in the will. And Field of Bears gives us $5 and says, as always, another super chat. Mike has best voice. And then
thank you.
You're welcome. According to
it's the booze talking.
Field of Bears. Yes,
it's not me. Leave me alone.
It's because I'm Canadian, isn't it?
Josh, yes, it is.
No, it's because you're yellow.
Fuck. Josh Nielsen gives us $5 and says, women use immature as shaming language. Boys and men are immature if they don't serve female interests. And that's a good point, too. Thanks for sharing that. So, moving on. Because I got some interesting stuff to share about the SPLC. So, history, the men's rights movement. Diving into the well-researched, and I put that in quotes, history of the men's rights movement. Sourcing comes from Michael Kimmel and David Futrell. Who saw that coming? Who saw that coming?
Yeah,
everybody.
Show of hands if you saw that coming. Okay.
Are you happy with this, Kimmel? You're supposed to be a fucking academic, and you're being lined up with this douchebag on the internet. That's all he's ever been. A douchebag on the internet.
It's not like you couldn't talk to the actual fucking MRAs.
Well, actually, the last time Michael Kimmel did try to talk to actual fucking MRAs, he got decimated, and you guys can probably find that. It was a Q&A after a screening of The Red Pill where Karen and Michael Kimmel had a discussion. It was the first premiere in New York City. Look it up.
Oh shit!
It was glorious.
Never heard of this.
Yes,
but that was a wreckage and a ponage IRL. So that's far too. You're taking yourself too seriously if you do it in real life, face to face. That's cringe.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Kimmel has basically made up his mind, and don't you dare confuse him with the facts. David Futrell, on the other hand, has no mind and hates facts. He's allergic to them, so he makes up his own.
Yeah, it's just convenient. So
it's like going to a fucking flat earther for news about the
solar system.
Yeah.
To ask him about what Elon Musk has been up to. Ask a flat earther, right? All right, so here's a quote of the history from the men's rights movement, according to Michael Kimmel and David Futrell. Quote, men's rights activists decided to blame women, where others blamed minorities or immigrants, for taking away jobs, for the decline of the family, or for alimony and child custody issues after a divorce, rather than focusing on larger political and structural issues, because feminism is so small and harmless. It's a little thing.
It's not like every time we've had fathers' rights groups attempt to get equally shared parenting passed, feminist groups like the National Organization for Women torpedoed those by contacting legislators with speech that demonized fathers en masse as deadbeats and abusers or anything. You know, that didn't have any impact at all.
No, that sounds like you just said something about unicorns and minotaurs, and I don't believe it. It sounds like mythology to me. That doesn't happen. The fathers' rights movement served as a common entry point into the men's rights movement, and its focus on domestic abuse. Large portions of the movement were based on resentment of women and sustained by junk psychiatry, debunked statistics, as well as anecdotal evidence. He's talking about,
wow.
Well, yeah, I know. He's talking about what MRAs say. This isn't the feminists. Their psychiatry is totally legit. Their statistics are totally real, and their evidence is totally not anecdotal at all. It's real hard science, people. Just ask Bill Nye.
Especially that bit about rape statistics garnered by defining rape to exclude female perpetration, so that you can say that 95% of rape is committed by men. Because, you know, excluding female perpetration won't prevent you from finding out if any of it is committed by women. It's obviously rational to say that it's not rape to force sexual intercourse, the type of which you would use to produce children on men. It's only rape to force that on women, and then turn around and say, well, obviously that means 95% of rape is committed by men, so men are violent. Because that's rational.
Yeah.
But it's not rational to object to being told that a man is not victimized if he has sex forced on him, unwanted, by a woman, over his objections. That's not victimization when you do it to a man.
And like when people are taking the piss out of MRAs, like while they're doing it, very often, even people like Steve Shives, when they're doing it, they'll at some point concede, well, they do have a point about the draft, and they do have a point about family courts and the skewed decisions they make, but men's rights advocates make terrible arguments. Why would you ever listen to them? The way they present these arguments is completely misogynistic and wrong. Yeah, is there any chance you'll do that to anyone at all who presents these arguments?
Yeah, in other words, there are plenty of things that are wrong in the world. There are plenty of ways in which men get the short end of the stick. But how dare you get upset about it? What the hell is wrong with you? That's your lot in life.
Yeah, pretty much. Why are you complaining? Stop bitching and take it like a man. But also push against stereotypes that tell you to take it like a man.
There are so many angry people telling this truth. So, yeah, it's an icky truth. I don't like it. There's so much anger around it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's actually one of their big objections to Paul Elam, was that he responded angrily with sarcasm, dripping sarcasm, just absolutely, rage-dripping sarcasm, to an article in Jezebel where a bunch of women bragged about beating their boyfriends, including one who bragged about beating her boyfriend for being scared that he might have cancer because he thought he had breast cancer. 1 in 6 breast cancer patients are men, by the way. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's something that is a gendered cancer. It happens to both sexes. It is a legitimate fear regardless of your gender. She hit him for being afraid it might be happening to him. She hit him for being afraid he might have a deadly illness, a potentially deadly illness. But a guy's not supposed to get angry that somebody thought it was cool and funny to brag about that. You're not supposed to get angry that women are bragging about abuse because, God forbid, they're women. Nobody's allowed to get angry at women for anything.
No.
Except maybe other women.
Only if the woman that they're getting angry at deserves it because she's also defending a man.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So, anecdotal evidence. Next, they call Warren Farrell the father of the men's rights movement with his book, The Myth of Male Power. They call that the MRA Bible. So apparently the terrible, terrible, tyrannical Warren Farrell, who I think people do call him the father of the men's rights movement, so that's accurate.
I mean, the patriarchy,
former president of the National Organization for Women, by the way.
Yeah.
The patriarchy's been going on for hundreds, thousands, possibly millions of years, but the men's rights movement didn't get a leader until the late 20th century.
Yes.
You guys really suck at this patriarchy thing. I got to say that. Just you know.
We probably just
I've tried to think of some kind of historical figure who really stood up specifically for men's rights, and I struggle. You know, I think Lincoln. I mean Lincoln probably eased more male suffering than female suffering because male slaves were suffering more than female slaves, but his motive was certainly not a men's rights motive, was it?
Mm-mm.
And there's things like that. But there's never anyone in history who came up and said, hang on, how about we protect the men as well? And then won a bunch of wars because of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
No. Unless, Allison might know something about some Roman thing, but I think it's not even specifically men's rights. It's more about giving some value to men and women by honoring both. So even then, it was just equality. And okay, so moving on. They also claim legitimate grievances are just to draw people into the MRM and then orient them towards hating women, because that's what I did when I became a part of this whole thing, and Allison asked me to join the Honey Badgers and start doing shows. Then it was like she was starting to pour this like honeyed poison in my ear to tell me to start hating women, despite the fact that I was working with and for women at HBR. I'm actually still trying to work that out, because I'm supposed to hate you guys, but I also have to hang out with you and talk to you and stuff, and I work for you, and I do the show, and I don't sabotage it. It's very confusing.
It must be because of internalized misandry, because of the matriarchy. Oh, wait. It's all make-believe and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of subliminal messaging when it comes to how we talk to each other on Discord. You know, Allison will come to us with statistics, and she'll be like, yeah, you know, 80% of men are more likely to commit suicide. What is it, like 4 times? Women are all cunts. Make sure you take that to the bank and prove it to everybody that that men need help and that we need a men's rights movement. Women die.
There you go. And
no, it does. You just got to give yourself over to the dick side of the force. That's all it is.
There's a dick side of the force now.
Only a shitlord deals in absolutes.
Trust your misogyny.
Search your feelings.
So this article is insane. I'm not going to be able to go into it too much more, but you got to read it. We have included it in the sources. The name of the article is actually, and this is from the SPLCcenter.org, so it's not some other website someplace. This is actually the SPLC, and the article title is "The Year in Hate: Trump Buoyed White Supremacists in 2017, Sparking Backlash Amongst Black Nationalist Groups." And it goes, it doesn't even have anything to do with him, but you have to look at it. I put the link in the low bar. It is quite something. So that is, I want to give now Hannah the floor, because I'm sure that there's lots you want to say about the SPLC, but that is basically everything that I have in terms of slides and specific quotes. So Hannah, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to condense this because we only have so much time. But to start with, like I said before the show, I've been involved with A Voice for Men for quite some time, and this just blows my mind. You think about this. I tweeted about this earlier. Well, here what I wrote. In labeling MRA criticism of double standards and discrimination against men's supremacy, what the SPLC is actually doing is falsely labeling opposing demographic-based exclusion from human rights considerations, in other words, all civil rights activism, supremacy. And if they try to limit it to just MRAs, that makes it worse, because that's the exploitation of a position of trust as a hate watchdog, to use a label, to undermine advocacy for gender equal law and policy. And they don't even have the excuse to say that they don't know what we do and that they only got their information from Futrell, because that's bullshit. And I've been watching this happen for a long time. When I was on Reddit early on, when the men's rights subreddit only had like 3,000 people in it, and the conflict between feminists, Reddit feminists, and Reddit's men's rights subreddit started. Neither one of them actually had very many. There weren't very many feminists either. Reddit wasn't that big, and its new format was different. It was totally different from anything on the internet, and its format was much more open. And if you posted something, there was no way to know if you edited it, other than if somebody had archived it. And so what the feminists did to try to take down the subreddit was they would post something, and then they would get a bunch of comments on it, and it would be something like, this terrible person did something awful to me, and I successfully defeated the awful thing they were trying to do to me. And so there would be all these, go get her, you got her, that kind of thing. And then they would change it to, I beat and raped my ex-girlfriend. And then they would archive that, and they would try to use that to try to get the subreddit banned. And they were trying to use that to get the subreddit deemed a hate group. One of the things that they did, they did a lot of shaming tactics. They did a whole bunch of stuff like that. The mods of Reddit's men's rights had to employ a bot created by another Redditor to archive posts so that there would be an accurate record when those accusations of misogyny based on this fake posting and then editing were made. And the admins of Reddit did temporarily ban the men's rights subreddit for a short time, and it took arguments that you can't have all these feminist subreddits and then say the men can't have a subreddit of their own, and it took men and women making those arguments to get it back. But they used those types of posts to try to persuade the SPLC to call the men's rights subreddit, and that was ages ago. That was at least 10 years ago, and that tells me they know, they've been having to look at us. They wouldn't just not investigate after something like that. They wouldn't sit around and say, well, we've had all this information come in and we've been asked to look into this, but we're going to ignore it because why should we? So obviously they're fully aware. They have to know that A Voice for Men, for instance, has provided direct assistance to falsely accused men, that there are several of us that have been to court with falsely accused men. They have to know the Vladek Filler story. Vladek Filler is on the national list of exonerations, in part because of A Voice for Men's activism. They have to know that we've fought for due process rights. They have to know that we have actively lobbied for due process rights. They have to know that we have actively lobbied for equally shared parenting rights. They have to know that we have actively criticized bad research that marginalizes victims of female sexual assailants, that uses false definitions, that uses bad methodology. We are peer review for feminist research. And that means that when they applied that label, they knew they were using supremacists to smear advocates for civil rights, for intimate partner and sexual violence victims, for parents, for children, and for non-discrimination in law and policy, all because their advocacy is about reform in areas where there is discrimination against men. That is what they oppose. They oppose advocating against discrimination against men. In other words, the label is a direct effort at preserving anti-male discrimination. Why would they do that? And I'll tell you, it's because it benefits political groups that claim to represent women. But that's not supremacy, is it? And here we have this group, okay? There are news stories you can look up online. The Washington Free Beacon has looked into this. They transfer millions of dollars in cash to offshore entities. The Federalist has an article on 12 ways the Southern Poverty Law Center is a scam to profit from hate mongering. And they explain, that hey, it's a big money smear machine. They've got all kinds of money coming in from all kinds of groups that are politically motivated, and who funds them determines who they label hate mongers, who they label as hate groups. There's actually been violence as a result of their hate map. There has actually been discrimination. There's actually been fallout for people as a result of their hate map. People have lost jobs. People have had to move. There's been all kinds of shit. And a lot of what they do is very similar to what they've done with us. They take things that are more easily labeled hatred and mix them with things that are obviously not hatred together in one post or one description or one discussion, and they use one to smear the other. So they basically apply guilt by association, and they're so bad. They're actually so flawed in this that there are left-wingers who criticize them, not just right-wingers, not just libertarians, not just the alt-right, not just the men's rights movement, but progressives are starting to criticize them. And also the FBI stopped using them as a resource. And all of this boils down to they rake in a lot of cash as a smear machine for a narrow range of very wealthy, very bigoted people. And we're just the latest target of that. They don't really have any business labeling anybody a hate group till after they look in the mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I wanted to say, for the sake of clarity, that there are women that are listed under their entry of male supremacy. They do mention Karen. So they call her anti-feminist female voice, Canadian YouTube personality Karen Strawn. They also mention American psychologist Helen Smith, who you may have heard of. She's written a great book on the topic. Erin Pitsey, the domestic violence shelter for women founder.
Yeah, the founder of the domestic violence victims shelter movement is labeled a male supremacist. That's great.
What is that woman going to do?
Wait, and Christina Hoff Sommers, because she's using the rhetoric of equity feminists, which apparently even equity feminists are not feminist enough because they're male supremacists, or they're supporting male supremacy, because it says they overlap. Men's rights issues also overlap with the rhetoric of equity feminists like Christina Hoff Sommers, who give a mainstream and respectable face to some MRA concerns. And I guess we can't have that. And then, most recently, Cassie Jaye, an American documentary filmmaker, became a men's rights activist. She didn't, after producing the Red Pill documentary, a foray into the world of men's rights activists. And of course, this is all... David Futrell basically is responsible for most of this, if not all of this, because they talk about his blog, We Hunted the Mammoth, saying that Cassie Jaye accepted funding directly from MRAs, notably taking money from Paul Elam and Mike Cernovich, who gave $10,000, and apparently he's a misogynistic conspiracy theorist.
Okay, so Erin Pitsey, Cassie Jaye, Christina Hoff Sommers. These women collectively make Barney the dinosaur look like a fucking child molester. They are the most soft-spoken, kindest people that you will ever hear of. And they're honestly going to try and portray them as the ones that are completely lacking in independent thought, that they're trying to toe the line of severe hatred for women. Are you fucking kidding me? Do you know anything about Christina Hoff Sommers and her history?
I don't think any of them claim to be MRAs. I know Christina Hoff Sommers and Cassie Jaye for sure have said they're not MRAs. They're just not feminists.
Yeah, and Cassie didn't. Well, She didn't become an MRA. I believe she's often publicly confirmed that she doesn't consider herself an MRA. What did she do? Sort of quite publicly. I guess we can spoil it now because there's like a moratorium of about a year. But in the movie, she confirmed that she's no longer a feminist. That's all she did, and she quite explicitly said it. But apparently, a lot of people consider no longer being a feminist the same as becoming an MRA. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but I wonder how many people have to imply very strongly that that is the case before it looks like, fuzzily speaking, it might be. Eh?
Well, you know, the term MRA itself, like, fathers' rights groups existed for quite a long time before we heard anything about men's rights groups. I mean, there were people that used the term men's rights in discussion as a description of, hey, we are looking at areas where the law does discriminate specifically against men. But there weren't people calling themselves men's rights activists until feminists started using it as a slur to describe us for having the audacity to say if a law creates a restriction or places an obligation or protects a person's status, that law shouldn't discriminate based on gender. That makes you a men's rights activist, and it makes you a bad person because you don't want the law to discriminate based on gender. And it's now this thing that the SPLC is doing is right out of the David Futrell playbook. This is something, and I've seen it with other feminists. I mean, I've seen it all over Reddit for years. But what they basically do is they use the fact that part of the conversation on men's issues is that some discriminatory law is feminist lobbied, and some of it is defended by feminists. And they use that as if it's all we do is discuss that in an attempt to undermine us. And then they conflate feminist with women. They ignore the fact that the women in the men's rights movement are women. They ignore the fact that our advocacy is not contrary to what feminists say feminism is about. And instead go right for, you are advocating against women. And it becomes this effort to use you're misogynistic as a smear. And I don't know, this just, the whole thing is so stupid. And it's, they're doing, it's like somebody took the SPLC and is just doing a replay of the last 10 years of conflict between men's rights activists and feminists on Reddit. And I have to wonder if
it's a reenactment. It's a dramatization.
Who made the decision. I gotta wonder if it's a Redditor that made the decision.
Well, that's a good. That's a
by the way, she means literally a Redditor. She doesn't mean it as just a general insult.
Yeah, literally a Redditor.
Literally Redditor. Well, can I also point out something else that, for you guys who are watching? I want you to think about this, okay? We've listed pretty much everything that the Southern Poverty Law Center is saying is part of this male supremacy ideology. They're basically just listed as an ideology of male supremacy. And I want you to figure out what all of these things have in common, because I think we've got it nailed down. So, Milo Yiannopoulos, Mike Cernovich, Roosh V, MRAs, MGTOW, Red Pillars, Incels, PUAs, Karen Strawn, Cassie J, Christina Hoff Sommers, and Aaron Pitsey, as well as Helen Smith and Paul Elam.
Oh, can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead. What do they all have in common? They
all think anime was a mistake.
Oh, yep. And that is what the Southern Poverty Law Center is focused on.
They all think Hitler did nothing wrong.
So, yeah, just take that, think about it. What do they all have in common? Because they have a lot that they're not in common with, but they do have stuff in common. And it seems it's not, here's a hint. It's got nothing to do with women. It's nothing to do with women whatsoever.
Hey, SPLC, why don't you just come straight out with it and declare the skeptic community a hate group? Because it means basically the same thing, doesn't it? It's people who don't like social justice, progressivist feminism. You know, the SPLC calls us a hate group. The woke hipsters call us something else. It's, you know...
Yeah.
Whatevs.
Okay. So, that is... If there's nothing else, I'm done with this. You guys can look at the SPLC's ridiculousness on your own. I'm going to look at some super chats, though, because I'm a little behind on those. So, Joey Jojo gives us $5 and says, can't wait for my Christina Hendricks girlfriend robot to fight feminism with her busty, curvy MILF powers. Hail Joan Holloway. Hail Saffron. I don't know who Hail. Is Saffron a reference to...
Firefly, I think.
Firefly? Okay.
Yeah.
And Redicus gives us $2 and says, he said women when he meant women. Women. That's how we should be saying it. Whamins. Protect the whamins. Respect whamins. Arctic Master 1190 gave us $4.99 in American and says, late to the party, but MRAs are considered a hate group again? And they're blaming non-MRAs as advocates? Imagine my shock. Well, actually... No, they weren't considered a hate group before. This is the first time, to my knowledge, that they've actually been listed under the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group. Although people had claimed that they were for a long time, this is the first time, to my knowledge, that it actually is on the list.
So for like 4 years, people have been saying, well, according to the dictionary, feminism means a belief in equality. And according to the dictionary, men's rights advocate means someone who advocates for men's rights. Shit. According to the SPLC, men's rights advocacy is a hate group. And for the last 4 years, that factoid has been not exactly true. Because they thought about declaring us as a hate group. And then they went, oh, we can't commit to that just yet. But now it's 4 years later and they've committed to it.
Oh, and
so
you're gonna hear about this.
You're gonna get an endless. So they're gonna go right back to the dictionary says feminism is equality, and the SPLC says men's rights is a hate group.
Yep.
That's a consistent principle. What? Shut up.
Okay, let's move on to. Oh yeah, go ahead.
One more thing. If you disagree with the idea of having essentially a political propaganda organization have tax-exempt status in the United States, the IRS has a complaint process for that. And if you do a search where you put it in quotes, IRS complaint process - tax-exempt organizations, you will find the page that leads to the form you can fill out for that. Just saying.
I just had a horrifying thought. They're probably going to put the 3-word phrase men's rights advocate into the dictionary. And they're probably going to define it like the SPLC does.
Yes.
Oh, God.
In which case, there will have to be an initiative to contact the arbiters of dictionary definitions at various dictionaries, starting with Oxford, because they seem to be influential, and Merriam-Webster also.
Well, I'm sure there's been loads of us for ages saying to them, hey, this definition of feminism isn't accurate. Certainly no longer is, possibly never has been. And evidently they've never done anything about it. They've kept on saying no. By English definition, this movement is defined as its own success. What? Shut up. That's normal. That's a normal thing for a dictionary to say. So what's going to stop them from saying, oh, it's a perfectly normal thing for a dictionary to put the words men's rights advocate together and say it's a hate group that should never have existed and won't exist in the next edition of the dictionary because we'll have destroyed it by then. Fuck.
Well, that's a scary thought. Well, brace yourselves, because it's going to be a wild and bumpy future Earth. Okay, so let's move on to some lighter topics, because this is starting to bum me out, and that's why I wanted to do it first and get it over with. Twitch is partnering with a nonprofit to give out grants to female streamers. Yes. Yes, they are. Twitch has announced a partnership with 1000 Dreams Fund. That's we're going to call it 1DF for short. 1DF as a nonprofit that wants to fund 1,000 girls nationwide with scholarship funding. This means that they wish to accomplish this goal. Oh, I'm sorry. The means by which they're going to accomplish this goal is through micro grants. So what does that mean? Andrew Schroeder, Twitch's director of charity partnerships, 1DF's vision for their Dreams for Streams, or rather Streams for Dreams initiative. The Streams for Dreams initiative is inspiring since it aligns perfectly with Twitch's mission to help creators make a living entertaining and educating their fans. The event will elevate the importance of greater gender equity during Women's History Month, which I didn't know there was a Women's History Month, but I guess there is. And
apparently we have an entire history that it excludes men altogether. There were no men involved in our history, so we have this entirely separate and different history from, another planet or something where the women came from.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But men's history is literally every day. So can we just have this month? Thank you. The event will elevate the importance of greater gender equity during Women's History Month and is a wonderful opportunity for members of the Twitch community to engage with this issue. By partnering with Twitch, 1DF hopes to give women a little bit of money so that they can attend conferences and upgrade their equipment. Okay. The grants will range...
Because totally no one else is giving women money.
Yeah, nobody else.
Sorry, I'll stop interrupting.
It's okay. The grants will range in size from $500 to $2,000, with 2 or more grants awarded each semester. A recipient may only receive a grant once. However, those who apply and do not receive a grant may reapply. With this partnership, Twitch wants to raise awareness about a supposed gender gap in the broadcasting and gaming space. The timing of the announcement of these grants coincides with Women's History Month, March. How sad is it that we consider Twitch streamers getting grants because they're women something that's important in the wake of Women's History Month?
Brian, I want you to tell me that this is what's happening, okay? What's happening is that women who pull their tits out and play Call of Duty terribly as young teenage boys give them donations in the hopes that maybe the curly streamer will give them a shout out, is going to be receiving money to continue to do this? Is that what's happening right now?
Yes.
My God, you're a genius.
Well, they're sure as shit not going to give us any money.
I'm out.
This is why there will never be that sort of post-apocalyptic patriarchy that that people keep talking about, where women are subjectified as slaves or whatever, and sort of led around in fucking dog collars and shit. No, women will always have this option. They'll always be able to get fucking paid like armfuls of cash just for getting their tits out. Like you often wonder about what the exit strategy is of a group, and what if MRAs go too far and we create the opposite of this shit that's happening now. Mm-hmm. It's not gonna happen. I don't think. Is there ever going to be a market for dudes going on Twitch and getting their dicks out and basically just get paid for getting their dicks out?
Yeah. Not only by the people donating to them, which a lot of these female Twitch streamers make a lot of money doing for playing video games with or without breasts out, but then Twitch is also going to give them money. What?
And they're not supposed to be insulted by this at all. They're not supposed to be insulted by the idea that they can't succeed on their own without an initiative to give them money. And they're not supposed to be insulted at all by the idea that nobody would do this for them, that on the merits of their content, or even just interest in their bodies for that matter. Nope, there has to be there has to be donors, and there has to be an initiative from Twitch. And it might just be, it might just be that there is a gap in interest.
Oh, there
between
is
men
definitely.
and women.
Yeah.
Not just in the games themselves, but in broadcasting oneself playing the games.
Well, because
they might not want to be on. Not all the girls that play might want to be on camera, but sometimes money makes a difference.
Or if they're, if they're not gamers, but they're attention whores, then maybe Twitch isn't the best medium, so they're on Instagram or Facebook Live or some other place doing it. I mean, again, if they're using social media in other places, and maybe Twitch is trying to attract them to their platform, but you're probably not going to change anything. I mean, this is you're just giving women more gives. But let's hear what some of these streamers that are well known, I guess, have to say about it. So Tina Degenhart, but her tag is ShadowFox086. Somebody got on the internet early, because that sounds like some shit you couldn't get. Oh, maybe that's what the 86 stands for. She says, many of the problems women face are because of lack of respect. As I push my boobs together, the industry won't understand how to treat women if we don't show them how to treat women.
For fuck's sake.
I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of the misuse of the term respect. Okay, being up on a pedestal is not respect. Getting paid to have tits is not respect. Getting told you're special because of your gender is not respect. Women don't understand respect. All right, this isn't coming from a dude. This isn't coming from a MGTOW. This is coming from a woman who took years to learn what it means, even while growing up in a neighborhood that was mostly full of boys, even while engaging in activities that were mostly engaged in by guys, although there were always girls in my gaming group. My really bad joke is I've never been in a gaming group that didn't have a woman in it. But women don't understand respect, because women don't have to learn what it is in order to make demands that they be treated like something special. And they just have to use the word. They just have to misuse the word respect to describe veneration. And they get everything they want. And it's bullshit. It is terrible for men. And it's not really that great for women either. Because then you never learn how to be respectable. And you get very frustrated that you're not getting either respect or veneration. Because all you are is an asshole.
All right, I'm back from pretending to be dead. Brian, this Tina Degenhart chick, is it the same one that we're seeing on screen pushing her tits together?
I believe so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, before other people can respect you, you have to respect yourself. Bitch, what do you do with your life? You sit in front of a computer playing video games with your tits out.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a very respectable profession. Why don't you go out and learn a fucking trade? That's respectable.
Well,
but you don't get as much attention while doing that.
Sounds like a good life to me.
Yeah, I mean, if I could get away with it. But here's the thing.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be able to talk bullshit.
No, here's the thing, though. She's not going to be able to do this for that long. So she's going to have something else lined up. I'm sorry, but the wall comes for everyone eventually. And so this isn't a viable career. I could see this. I don't understand. Like, it could be a hobby, an interest, and maybe even a short-term job. If you can make some money off of it, then good for you, because there are men and maybe other women that are, interested in paying you to do it. I mean, people have Patreons and like maker supports, and there's tip jars, and there's all these systems to make money. And I'm okay with it. It exists. That's fine. But what I don't get is that Twitch is giving people free money just because they want to attract more females to the platform. And then this woman claims the reason, which is I think what you're responding to, is because apparently, according to her, women are getting a lack of respect, and the industry doesn't know how to treat them like women, because we don't show them how to treat them like women, because we measure what? I mean, like, I don't understand where the what's missing here. You get the views you deserve. You get the tips you deserve. You get the money you deserve. If there are other people that make more, it's either because they have better personality, better gameplay, they're doing a better job of streaming, or they're more attractive than you. That's that's what it comes down to. They're making better content than you. Don't be salty. That would be like people on YouTube that have like a low sub count, demanding that YouTube give them the money that people that have a higher sub count get, just because they don't have enough subs. And the reason is because their content is not as attractive. I mean, what else could it be? People don't want to watch your shit. Too bad. You know, get good, scrub. Aren't you a gamer? Do you not know what that means? I mean, sorry.
I'm guessing this.
Get so good that people constantly tell you should have more subs.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm guessing though that this her use of the word respect and her statement about the platform not knowing how to treat women, I'm betting it's not sub related. So you've got an image of her up, is that right? Of where she's like shoving her boobs together or something. Oh, I see it. Yep. And she's really shoving them together there, isn't she? And I'm betting that she got some sexual comments in response to that. I'm betting that showing your tits when you have a nice face and you have a shapely, curvy body and you're young and doe-eyed and have the Cupid's bow lips and all of that, and you're not just showing the tits, you're showing them all the way down to where they start curving back away from each other. So you're really showing the tits. I'm betting some people said nice tits. I'm betting some people probably said, I would like to stick my dick between those tits.
Damn
which
it.
is the whole point.
That is exactly the thought that went through my mind right as you said
Wait. Or
that is the whole point of shoving your tits together on camera. Is to
I'll meet
put
you there,
that
Max.
thought in men's heads, okay?
I'm
If
sure
you don't do it.
I'm sure there was at least one or two open Bob's show Vagana in there too.
Yeah, and I'm betting that she didn't shove her tits together to inspire men to focus on the area, the formula for the area of a circle, or the formula for the area of a sphere. None of that was probably on her mind, but they're not allowed to voice it, right? God forbid that they actually say anything to her, because even though women have abandoned women's side of that bargain, that historical bargain that men and women made together, I will act like I am untouchable and super moral and special and delicate, and my sensibilities lead me to be the person who should be the arbiter of when we should do what, and you kowtow to that, and I will be less rough around the edges, and I will not have sex with everything that moves and get into fights and be a hard drinking, hard cussing cunt. And now women have walked away from their side of that, but they still want men to honor their end of the bargain, wherein they always do their best to assist a woman in need, wherein they kowtow or coddle a woman's sensibilities, and wherein if a woman who uses her own rough language all she likes gets offended when he uses it, they apologize. They expect their aversions. These same women expect their aversions to be indulged. They expect exemption from some of life's responsibilities, but they don't expect to do any of the things women have historically done to appear to earn those things. And I say appear because I don't think you ever really earn that. And so this is a situation where we have young women who have been raised to expect men to meet the expectations of their traditional gender roles, but to feel entitled to not live up to any of the expectations of theirs. And then they turn around and they claim that they're not respected if men don't live up to those expectations. And this is, women used to be revered. Women used to be revered as something special. When they lived up to the moral and social standards associated with their traditional role, they were ladies. They weren't wenches. They weren't cunts. They weren't women. They were ladies. And you treated a lady like a lady. Now they wanted to be treated like ladies without acting like them.
Yep.
You know, I don't bitch if somebody doesn't treat me like a lady, because I am not a lady. I am a woman. And if I hear rough language from someone, that is not disrespectful, because I fucking use it myself. You know, and if I show my tits and someone notices that I showed my tits and comments on them, that's not disrespectful because I showed my tits. You know, this idea that it is this reverence that women used to receive in return for basically acting like nuns without the habit is deserved when they don't do that. It's so dishonest, and it leaves both sexes very confused, and it leaves both sexes at odds with each other, and it creates a lot of conflict. And honestly, it's a level of immaturity that needs to be stopped. If you want to be treated like a lady, that's fine. Act like a lady and associate with men who want a woman to act like a lady and who want to treat a woman like a lady. If you want to have the freedoms from accountability that feminists fought for, don't expect to be treated like a lady, because you're not.
Yep. All right, continuing on with the article. One quote from Andrew Schroeder, the director of charity partnerships, reads, the purpose. 1DF created a grant specifically to support female broadcasters on Twitch. The 1000 Dreams Fund Twitch Broadcast Her grant provides financial assistance to eligible women to help with expenses such as travel to gaming conventions, educational conferences, hardware upgrades, and instructional programs related to creative or artistic pursuits. This grant is not intended for everyday expenses such as utility bills or food costs or costs related to medical care.
No, it's a fucking donation like all the other ones they get on Twitch or YouTube or whatever place to get their fucking super chats.
Yeah, exactly. So, criteria. To be eligible for this grant, you must be female and a Twitch-affiliated or partnered broadcaster. Preference will be given to applicants that are currently enrolled in high school, 2-year, 4-year college, university, or graduate school based in the U.S. Applicants must demonstrate financial needs. Applicants must include an essay explaining how the grant would be used. Selection will be based on application contents and financial need. So, it's essentially a program set up specifically to give women a leg up on Twitch, because women need help all the time.
Twitch, can't you just fucking donate your money? Like, I understand that you get a lot of like daily internet traffic. Can you please just send your money to like a cancer organization? Hell, even like if you gave it to like a female charity like breast cancer or something like that. Do something like that instead of this shit. Agreed. Seriously.
You know, this is just looking at this. That this is at odds with what this young lady said. Here we go. The applicants are supposed to be enrolled in high school, college, grad school, so they're supposed to be young, but it's an academic thing, right? And the funds are supposed to be used for gaming conventions, educational conferences, hardware upgrades, instructional programs. But it's specifically to get not female broadcasters on Twitch, but young female broadcasters. There aren't very many high school students out there that are over the age of 19. There aren't that many university students out there, college or university students out there that are over the age of 25. And even grad school, you don't see a significant portion of grad school that's over 30. In fact, I know people that were denied entry into doctoral programs, into master's and doctoral programs, because they were too old And the universities to which they applied wanted to reserve those places in those programs, and this is in STEM programs, for younger people. So what they're actually trying to do is use the premise of as academic scholarship in inserting academic scholarship into gaming, which I consider rape right away there. That's unwanted. That's unwanted penetration. But the insertion of academic scholarship into gaming as a pretense for getting more TNA onto Twitch. They're looking for views. They're looking for more viewers. They're using Twitch girls as a draw so that they can tell their advertisers more people are watching Twitch.
Yeah, it's to drive traffic.
Yeah, but that's totally respectful. Yeah, these girls are really respected. They're being lured in because they're young and cute.
They're totally
and
not being
used as bait. This is girls' night Twitch version.
But they don't mind. I mean, they get what they want out of it too, so.
Yeah, I know, but it's so funny because it's being portrayed as a pro-woman thing, and feminists hate girls' night.
All right, so I guess I don't know. We got to move on because we've already gone a little over what I intended. We have 2 more stories to get through, but we'll try to do those quickly. So yeah, that's it for the Twitch story. That's where we are because equality. There you go. So next story. I'm a campus sexual assault activist. It's time to reimagine how we punish sex crimes. Author Sophie Karasek claims that traditional means of punishing sexual harm do not work, especially for the victims, and that alternative methods of justice need to be implemented. She asserts that current punitive measures such as firings, prison sentences, do not grant validation, acknowledgement, or closure to victims, and does not guarantee that perpetrators will not act again. She says, "When I was assaulted at 18, I knew clearly what I wanted. I wanted him to never violate anyone else again, ever. 4 of us whom he'd assaulted told the university. Through proper channels, he was eventually found responsible, but the punishment was negligible. Nor did it achieve any of the goals that I was hoping for. He assaulted another person the weekend of his graduation. The whole process made me feel betrayed, angry, and unvalued. It was worse than the assault itself." During her campus sexual assault activism, the author was asked why she didn't seek further penalties against her harasser. She ultimately gives the reason that, quote, "putting him in prison seemed almost laughably ill-suited to what I needed. What I wanted was for him to change his behavior. He needed an intervention, not prison." Karasek explains that all survivors deserve justice, healing, and trust, regardless of whether or not they report their attackers. "We're simultaneously dehumanizing the people who committed sexual assault for years by calling them monsters and learning that the people who commit those crimes are our friends, co-workers, family members, and partners." Claims that Black and Native American sexual assault survivors have long argued for alternatives to traditional punishments, as these traditional means don't work for them because Blacks don't trust police because, quote, "the same police who criminalize their family and friends," and, quote, "Native American survivors who are often barred from pressing criminal charges against non-Native perpetrators in tribal courts," end quote. Quotes the hashtag MeToo founder Tarana Burke, who said, "It's time to turn this ship around." So, cites this article. References Mary Koss's work at the University of Arizona and the Restore program. The Restore program, as the author describes it. This is a program called Restore that uses a framework in which the harm doer takes responsibility for what happened and a formal plan is developed for the person to make amends and change his behavior. This approach also involves community members along with family and friends. Of course, they do mention the harm doer is referred to her as he because there is no such thing as a woman that commits harm. I mean, they can't do that, right? Another organization is referenced called Black Women's Blueprint, who launched a 4-day-long Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which gave 15 survivors the space to share their stories and be publicly affirmed by the community. Farah Tanis, the director of Black Women's Blueprint, noted that during the 4-day event, some men in attendance said that they had sexually harmed women and offered apologies. Ultimately, this presents no clear-cut answers to the proposed problem, but still wants to bring alternative justice models to Hollywood. She believes that these institutions can never truly be fair and unbiased due to liability reasons, and that sexual assault survivors need an option that is truly independent and funded by the government. Of course it does. She ends the article by saying the following: "Our systems for dealing with sexual injustices are broken. The question is whether we are using this moment, the hashtag #MeToo, to construct better ones."
You know, I think it's perfectly reasonable to look for different methods of trying to achieve justice and to make sure that criminals serve proper time and make sure that they aren't going to commit again, but through proper counseling, for lack of a better term. However, I still think it's reasonable to say that we can pursue these types of justice while still sending these assholes to prison. Because I can guarantee you that one thing that will stop a potential rapist from wanting to commit the act is the fact that when they go to prison, they will most likely be on the receiving end of a rapist. And then they will see what it's fucking like. And look, I understand. Like I said, it's just, you can't just try to replace one justice model with another. You can integrate a bunch of them at once and then see which combination works best, but don't just throw prison out, because for me personally, if anybody thinks that the act of sexual assault or rape is at all permissible, they deserve to have their dick and or clit cut off permanently.
I think a lot of times these people do not understand what leads to sexual violence. And like the fact is, a lot of the people who commit sexual violence against other people already know what it's like because they were on the receiving end of sexual violence when they were children. And they generally commit against the gender that violated them when they were children. There's research that shows that most rape is committed by a very small percentage of the population. It usually, let's see, the one study, I can't think of the guy's name. His study was largely discredited in its conclusions, but its conclusion wasn't that rape was committed by a small percent of the population. His conclusion was that rape was epidemic on college campuses, even though he interviewed a lot of people who were not college students. But what he did find was that most people who commit sexual violence are people who in general are criminally violent. So what you're dealing with in terms of sexual violence is an overall mentality of using criminal violence as a means of dealing with conflict. That's the first thing that would have to be addressed, and that's not being addressed in a therapeutic situation at all. As far as punishment goes, I don't know. I honestly, and I've been a target of criminal violence repeatedly throughout my life, sexual and non-sexual. And the way I look at it is, it really doesn't do any good to lock people up for years and years and years. Everybody that happens to comes out more criminally violent. Very few people come out of that situation reformed. So it's not working, not by itself. And it does work when the community supports and their family supports their reform. But in order to do that, you have to address that tendency to make criminal violence their first approach to handling conflict. And honestly, that's not going to be dealt with until we learn to deal with the fact that a large percentage of sexually violent adults are female, that a large percentage of them prey on boys, And that when we put those boys into a situation where they cannot expect any kind of recovery from that, because they're not allowed to talk about it, they're not allowed to complain about it. If they do, they get treated unmanly, and they get treated like they're complaining about a gift, or they get treated like they're wimps for having let it happen to them, even if there was nothing they could do about it. Until we address these things, until we start helping them recover from what they've experienced, we're not going to address any of this. So this restore program, it's not based on a bad idea. It's just not necessarily an honest approach to that idea.
It's also incomplete.
And I wouldn't personally be opposed to the idea of completely changing what incarceration means. In fact, I would be very much for completely changing what incarceration means. For one thing, stop putting people in solitary confinement. That's torture. And it is a violation of human rights. It is an incredible wrong. And it is as criminal as criminal violence can be.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I would love to see changes. I'm not sure that this is something I could stand by, but they're not entirely wrong.
I totally agree. Solitary confinement, absolutely not. I also just wanted to quickly clarify something that I said before. Rape is not an appropriate punishment for anybody, even rapists. I'm just saying, like, it's known. It's an unfortunate reality that sort of rape culture exists in prison. And
that's what the term originally comes from. It was used to describe prison.
Exactly.
Prison rape, basically.
It was culturally appropriated, you might say.
Yes. Yeah. So sorry, I wasn't trying to. I'm just saying, like, that's the way it is, and until it changes, it should be something that makes anybody who ever even thinks about committing the act of rape, makes them fear ever going to prison for something like that. That's all I'm saying.
I'd like to add something too. This person talks about this friend from school that supposedly sexually assaulted her and her friends, and they tried to get them, he got him in trouble, but the punishment was negligible, and then he did the same thing to someone else. I'm struggling with this a little bit because I'm wondering what she defines as sexual assault or rape in this case, because it seems to me that this guy has gotten away with it 5 times, and I'm starting to question how rapey this event was. And I just don't think there's enough information given in the article. She just says, I'm a victim of this guy, and so are 3 or 4 of my friends, and we got him in trouble, and he was reprimanded, but nothing came of it, or at least nothing that was to my satisfaction. And then he went and did it again. So I'm like trying to figure out, well, what do you mean by rape? Like, did you guys get drunk and have sex? Did he pressure you, like, with words? Like, what exactly happened? And I'm not satisfied with this kind of this story, because it seems to me that if what she says is to be believed at face value, our justice system just doesn't work when it comes to convicting rapists, and I find that very hard to believe. I know that proving rape happened can be difficult, but I think if someone is guilty, punishment typically happens. I mean, that is not something that someone just gets away with. So,
well, and that brings up another important point. What these people are advocating, all right, in this story, is the use of government force to push people into, and they're going to call it therapy, but to push people into a mandated reprogramming system. Now, it isn't necessarily 100% wrong, and it is definitely not 100% right. And a government-mandated reprogramming system, now, I will say this all relies on accepting that this is the government's place in the government's business. So we'll say, all right, we're going to have a government. We have a government. We're in a situation where we have made the government, the arbiter of people's boundaries, the arbiter of your autonomy versus your neighbor's autonomy. And so that's what this reprogramming is to be centered on. And it is a reprogramming thing. All therapy is mental reprogramming, re-education. So don't have any illusions about what this is. We can call it therapy, but and we can think of it as a nice thing, but it is reprogramming, and it is not something that's easy to go through. Even the best of therapies, not something easy to go through. And I can tell you that from personal experience with obsessive compulsive therapy. It sucks to confront your own dysfunction and try to reprogram yourself to overcome that dysfunction. But if we're going to label something dysfunction, then we damn well better have a clear, concise, and honest definition of the dysfunction that we are labeling and the reprogramming that we're doing. And right now, we don't in terms of sexual violence. We have gotten to the point with the consent narrative where we ignore female agency in sexual encounters. And that is terrible. And that is dangerous to both sexes. It leads to women getting into situations where they feel they have encountered or experienced sexual violence when the guy wasn't sexually violent. And it leads to guys being wrongly accused and wrongly arrested, wrongly punished for engaging in something they didn't engage in. And we need to stop considering it sexual violence to have a miscommunication. We need to limit the definition to the deliberate contravention of somebody's right or ability to refuse sexual contact. That is violence. It is not violent to have a misunderstanding. It's not violent to engage in a mutual interaction with mutual activity, mutual chance to communicate, and one side fails to communicate and then turns around and blames the other side for everything that happened. That's not the other side being violent. That's dishonesty. And we can't really advocate for a system like anything like these people are talking about until we make that clarification. Yeah, there is dysfunction. There is sexual dysfunction. There is human dysfunction that leads to people making criminal violence their primary response to conflict or to circumstances where there's a question. But for crying out loud, make sure it's actually sexual violence before you put them into a government-mandated reprogramming system.
To say people dated, it's more inclusive.
No, it's mandated because, women don't have agency, right?
Yeah. They don't get to date. Only men do. I don't know. Okay. So I got some super chats, and then we're going to go on to the last story. Joey Jojo. He is so darn generous. Gives us $2 and says, I love big titty Twitch girls, busty nerd girls. This is in reference to the Twitch story, obviously. And he gives us another $2 and says, best nerd girl is Stephanie Michelle, busty nerd. Okay, well, I'm sure
we're gonna build a robot for you one of these days.
We are. It's gonna be.
Ask me for a quote on that, but what you must have given us hundreds of dollars by now. We'll knock something together for you. Something you can stick your dick in. Something that's got lips. Actually, I've seen some of the sex toys they're trying to come up with that have like lips, like realistic lips. The plastic rubber ones that you're meant to rubber
silicone.
It's one of the scariest things I've ever seen because it's got no eyes, no face. It's just
it's just a mouth,
disembodied lips that you're supposed to.
Yeah, there's one with a mouth above a set of tits that looks really funny. But if you're gonna do something like that, I recommend silicone simply because it's got a better texture, and nobody's likely to be allergic to it. And like I said, latex allergy, discovering latex allergy in the middle of a sex act, don't let that happen.
Oh, there you go.
It's not fun.
Rule 34, people, work on it.
So you are. So you too are a man of
I want this
culture.
Rule 35 by the end of the week.
Yes. All right, and then I got some other super chats over here. Redicus gives us $2 and says, remember Milo Yiannopoulos' privilege grant? Yes, I remember, and I wonder where that went, although I wouldn't have benefited from it because I'm brown. Arctic Master 1190 says, shorten name to AM. Okay, so AM gives us $4.99 and says, I think part of this is for trying to bring in revenue from those rich women. He's in reference to the Twitch thing. Zeranx gives us $10 and says, regarding your fatherless stream on telomeres, this was last week's show, is it possible the aging of fatherless males has something to do with black males being thought older than they are? Yeah, because when there's not a father in the home, the women and men both become sexually active earlier, and they also hit puberty earlier. In particular, girls do. Zeranx gives us $10. Also, black people tend to have a higher testosterone levels. I know, it's like there's a difference between races, but they do tend to have higher testosterone levels than other races. Zeranx gives us another $10 and says, combined with the study on races being unable to discern other races' faces correctly, can this not be pushed to encourage change? Sorry for being off topic. Can't use black without dashes in SP. I don't know. I don't understand the question. Combined with the study on races being unable to discern other races' faces correctly. Yeah, I don't know of the study you're talking about, so I'm not sure. But if you're saying, can we, talk about this whole telomeres thing and try to use it to, address change and look at it from a scientific perspective in order to try to make things better in terms of what? Relations between men and women, relations between races, just out of curiosity. So, okay.
So it's a question that always dogs every white ethno state. Do you want IQ? In which case we go with the Asians. Do you want high T count? In which case we go with the blacks.
Mm-hmm.
This is the good thing about the whites. We're kind of a middle ground.
Yep.
And there's no middle without the far ends. Jam say.
Yeah, it's almost like we all complement each other in some way. Okay.
You mean it takes all kinds?
Yeah, it takes all kinds. Crazy.
Different strokes for different folks?
Well, yeah. Speaking
there
of
were
strokes,
some good ideas that came out of the 70s after all.
Zeranx gives us another $10 and says, in regards to Twitch, we know you guys like throwing cash at booby streamers, so we made a grant to encourage more booby streamers for you guys to throw cash at. Using the whammon? How dare you? Yeah, that's a good point. AM gives us $1.99 and says, oh joy, more reasons for men to avoid university. And then Zeranx gives us $5 and says, this makes me think that Jessica Rabbit was probably really bad. Don't you think? Why else would she say, quote, I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way, end quote.
Oh, she was bad. She was a bad girl.
Yeah, she was very bad. And then Arctic Master 1190 or just AM gives us another $1.99 and says, thank you for the shortening. Here's a tip. And while I just didn't shorten his name, I just want to read the whole thing, Joey Jojo gives us $2 more and says, I want a busty curvy bot with a pinup girl body. Well, what if it's...
Who doesn't?
What if it's just got a big pair of lips on it, though? Would you be okay with some DSL?
I'm going to have to sew a Ushanka onto its head as well. It's mandatory.
Yeah, you're just going to have to, make do with that.
Well, if you just want lips, just get the fleshlight. Right?
I don't know.
Learn to use your hands, son. It's lesson 1, and it's the only lesson you need. Your hands are better than anything. Seriously.
Yeah, but if your hands have lips, then you might have a problem.
You can sew lips onto your hands.
Yeah.
You can sew anything to your hands.
Well, haven't you ever seen one of those, those little hand puppets people used to make, and they would draw the lips on the thumb and the forefinger?
The plot thickens.
Yeah. There you go. Put a little
wig
what else
on
thickens? It. Okay. Moving on.
Why
story.
are you looking at me like that? Don't look at me like that. Oh, fuck off, Codger.
There you go. Never put eyes on the hand puppet.
Okay, last story, and I'm gonna let Max drive.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can operate the screenshots while you're reading. This would be fun. Go for it.
Okay. All right. Before I start reading, I just want to ask everybody that's watching the show right now, there's approximately 200 of you. Make sure you hit that like button, because remember, when you hit the like button, it tells the YouTube algorithm that our content is worth watching, and it spreads it around to a whole bunch of more people. There's 200 of you. There's currently 80 likes. That means 120 of you can hit that button right now if you just take 5 seconds. Thank you so much. I see it going up right now. You guys rock.
And for those of you who aren't doing it because you're ironic, well, do it instead, because that'll be double ironic. So,
Ironicception.
Yeah.
Undermine our expectations.
All right, and just like that, we're already past 112. We went from 80 to 112 in like 20 seconds. 116. Thank you. Keep going. All right. This write-up is titled, University of York says all your memes belong to us. Not literally. That was the joke. The University of York in the UK has decided to come down on the spiciest of the spicy memes. On February 17th at 1 in the morning, a private Facebook chat for politics students was cursed by the meme gods. Well, actually, it was just 2 other students. Except instead of memes depicting Gandalf saying, if you do not study, you shall not pass, there were, of course, memes about Hitler and disabled people. 2 shit posters decided to share some of the following memes. One displayed a picture of Adolf Hitler with the following caption: I burned 6 million calories in 4 years.
That's absurd. There's way more than 1 calorie in a Jew.
Yeah. Unless you really think they're that cheap. All right. There was
Well,
another
I mean,
picture.
if you starve them out first, then, never mind. Go ahead.
Oh, God. Okay, here we go. There was another... I could see those likes rolling back already. There was another picture of Gordon Ramsay shouting at Hitler with the following caption: put them back in the fucking oven. They're starting to cook to the writing fucking diaries. Jeez. Oh, man, I'm going to hell. As well, one of the memers referred to Hitler as a rational consumer, while the other said that he was a utility maximizer.
Oh.
What the fuck?
Real quick, I just gotta say, people, the reason why people joke about Hitler is because it upsets people. Partly because it's edgy. I mean, like, isn't there a whole board, I think, on 4chan or something called, or maybe it's Reddit, I'm not sure. I think it's called I'm Going to Hell. And it's all just like these jokes that are just,
That's Reddit.
Yeah, it's Reddit. Okay.
It's you do whatever joke will work. Whoever's the most famous. I mean, if I said something about Idi Amin, then maybe 20% of the audience go, "Oh yeah, that guy who ate people. Yeah, it's funny." But if I'm trying to appeal to a live audience, for instance, and I want to get out as many laughs as possible, I'll go with the most famous bastard in history. And I'm pretty sure at this point, Hitler's the most famous bastard in history. There's not many people more famous than Hitler.
No, I don't
Michael
think...
Jackson and Mickey Mouse is about it.
Yeah, I don't think you could tell jokes about Ivan the Terrible and get quite the same response, because there'll probably be people who are like, who is that guy? I've heard the name, but I don't place the face.
You're literally Hirohito.
Yeah, exactly.
Well. Hang on, he got bombs dropped on him. Yeah, but he was with the Nazis. He was one of the... Yeah, but the gray area help.
By the way, Xerinx is saying I should have been more dramatic with the "you shall not pass" part. Okay, sorry. Let me do it again. You shall not pass. There, you happy now? All right.
Pretty good.
God bless you, man. All right. Moving on.
You need that soundbite. Brian,
I gotta go get it.
You shall suck my ass. The 2 were removed from the group chat, and one of the chat members notified the university. A few days after the quote-unquote incident, the university released a statement stating it had a, quote, zero-tolerance policy towards racist, sexist, or bigoted behavior, and that anyone in breach of it would face anything from a £250 fine to expulsion. It is currently unknown what happened to the 2 students in question, but I think it's fair to say that the world rolled them for not being the sharpest tools in the shed. Yeah. Get it?
Pretty good. Pretty good. So they're coming for your memes now, guys.
because they don't understand graveyard humor.
No,
Yeah.
no, they don't.
Nobody understands. What is it with these people and not understanding that absurd humor is a thing? Like the joke is that it's such a terrible thing to say, and the fact that they said it out loud and breaking that stigma, even though nobody thinks it's an okay thing to say, but it's okay in the context of humor.
You know, honestly, I think Hitler deserves to spend all of eternity being a butt of ridicule in the form of memes and anything else anybody can think of to use to ridicule him. I don't think there's anything wrong with ridiculing Hitler.
I also think we need more Stalin memes. I think we should like be stepping up our game on that front. Throw some Mao stuff in there too. I haven't seen enough Mao memes. We need more of that too. That's just
Mao couldn't even take a great leap forward. Have you seen that guy? He looks like he weighs 300 fucking pounds. Go ahead. There's your meme.
Mao didn't brush his teeth, you know, because tigers don't brush their teeth. So it just washed him through with tea every morning. His teeth were green. Mao's teeth were green. He was a fucking wreck. By any modern standards. You don't often hear that shit, do you? You don't often hear comedy routines about what a dickhead Mao was.
Mao makes me Lamau.
It's good.
And of course, there would be a lot more communist memes out there, but everybody who is considering posting them has been Stalin.
Mm-hmm.
Stalling.
I get it. I'm sorry. I got it. I
thought I'd just lean in there.
Yeah, I just thought we'd share that because I thought that was really interesting that they were coming for the memes, and I actually think that it's my belief that this is the kinds of jokes that these sorts of edgy memes are come from. I think they're more often made by boys, so if this is going to be a thing that results in things like suspensions and expulsions and whatnot, which I could see happening, you can expect more boys dropping out of universities like York. That's my guess. I mean, I'm open to being proven wrong. I hope that there's, I know that there are some dank ladies out there that like the May-Mays, but I'm thinking that it's more so dudes looking for that kind of stuff, especially considering that where are memes born? Where are they born? Do you know? Online, that is. Does anybody know the answer to that question? I'm asking the chat too.
By the way, Brian, it's pronounced Les Epic May-Mays.
Les Epic May-Mays, yes.
Memes are like languages. They're not born and they're not constructed either. They're sort of evolved by a sort of emergent self-organizing process.
And they rise to the top based on merit, right? So the funniest ones are the ones that get shared around and spread. Some of them die really fast. Some of them go on and on. From what I understand, if a meme shows promise, then it basically takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, so, I often think of myself as a person without faith, but I'm a comedian who believes in memes, and that means no matter how hard you try, you'll never be as funny as this random shit that just passed by in the wind. So yeah, you just have to accept the wind of fate, as it were.
There you go. All right, so we got more super chats. Polaris. Oh no, Joey Jojo says, I have hands.
Well, that's very good to know.
Yeah, but I want to cuddle and hug a woman, all caps, for $2. Thank you. Sorry, Jojo, that's rape today. But maybe you'll meet someone who doesn't think so or doesn't speak the English language. Polaris 589 gives us $5 and says, the reason why Hitler won the election was because there was no one for his enemies to compare him to. There was no one for his enemies. There was no one for his enemies to compare him to, I think is what they mean.
It was a bit like when Hillary had so few enemies that she thought, well, I can even put one of my friends in the Republican running. Yeah. And he'll throw the election for me.
AM gives us $4.99 and says the Hitler memes were fucking hilarious. These people need to grow a sense of humor. Sorry for all the odd payments on mobile with these super chats. So, okay, mobiles, I guess there's a weird way that they put them through. Well, thanks, AM, for the chats nonetheless. I just found it funny that you're giving us that amount. Is nobody going to give us anything for like another odd number, like 420 or 1488 or 69 cents or something? I mean, I'm just expecting that, you know. Oh.
Someone give us a 420. I always appreciate a 420.
Yes.
I need about 420. Well, I was about that time.
So I guess that's all we got. So we got through it in about 2.5 hours. Not too bad. And we're at the end of the show. So I'm going to thank you guys. Unless anybody else has any final thoughts on anything, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this bitch up.
Well, for anyone out there, anyone who's listening, perhaps anyone who's never been here before, anyone who came here in the meticulous hope that you'll hear some drama regarding something else, well done. You've done a bang-up job of not caring there. Have you really been here for like 2 hours? You truly are an hero.
Wait, what? Oh,
the atmosphere is so salty I could cut it with a knife and sprinkle it on some ravioli.
Ravioli sounds good right now. I'll just say, in terms of final thoughts, just remember, guys, you're all all-stars. Get your game on and go play.
Well, I will say that as far as the show goes, I tried so hard and I got so far, but in the end,
Tried so hard.
Stop. Don't sing too much of that stuff. You know where it leads.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it. Sorry, Chester. And yeah, so Hannah, do you want to say anything before we go? I have to do a quick shout out to something, but if you want to.
Yeah, well, if we're all quoting song lyrics, then I'm going to say, I'll be mellow when I'm dead. I'll be mellow when I'm dead. I'll be mellow when I'm dead.
There you go.
Or you can be mellow when you're yellow. Join the Simpsons Can Ethno State today, guys. You know what they say, once you go yellow, white doesn't fit anymore. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay.
I have something to say about the record. I need to tell the people how I feel. Fuck the record, fuck the people. Okay.
All right, so one other thing. So we're still doing the Alberta fundraiser. There is a link I will put in the low bar to donate. It's at our Feed the Badger. Actually, it is down there right now. So please help us out. This is I can't possibly imagine how there's any more court shit after this, personally. But what's happening is, you guys already know this, the Mary Sue and Calgary Expo are going to try to drain us of money. We were originally going to settle, but it appears that they're not, going through this in good faith, which I knew they weren't gonna do. So now we're just gonna have to demolish them, and I know that we can. So I'm saying this, speaking for myself. I don't want to make Allison mad at me, but speaking for myself, we can demolish them, but we do need your help. So go to Feed the Badger, help us out, give us donations, and we will push their shit in. So we don't want... Mary Sue should get exactly what it deserves, and I think you guys know what that is. And you can help us do it. So go to feedthebadger.com and donate. Also, give us more likes on this video. Let's try to get more people watching this stuff. Maybe not like the news show, because I'm not sure that a lot of people like it. But there's lots of other stuff that's good on this channel. So, maybe they'll watch that stuff. I know the Ragedings are popular, and the Rant Circus are popular, and Allison's videos are good, and Hannah's videos are great. So, there's lots of good content on here.
Hey, whoa, why? Yeah, you went through everything but mine.
I intentionally meant to just leave myself out, but yeah, the Breaking Badger is also good too. It's a nice bite-sized morsel of a video, not too long, so you might appreciate that more than these more long-form streams. There you go.
And they're sensibly titled. They're titled like named after the thing they're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is a novelty when you're around me.
There you go.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome, Max. It is time now to go to the after show where we will be discussing this article from Think, NBCnews.com/Think, NBCnews.com. Thought experiment. The patriarchal race to colonize Mars is just another example of male entitlement. I'm not kidding. This is a real thing. So we're going to be reading this article in the after show. If you want to join us in the after show, please become a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Become a patron and you'll be able to watch the shows live with us, watch them later, or if you're enough of a patron, you can actually be in the show with us talking about the article. So feel free to do that, and we will see you on the next show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you.